Hi, my name is Brosig, and today I'll be talking to you a little about the history of tobacco. After hearing my speech, the audience will better know the history of tobacco. The origin and history of tobacco use has had many changes throughout the years and has become a very widely used drug. Okay, here's a question for y'all. Would you smoke or chew tobacco if you were unaware of the risks it had, if you didn't know it was bad for you? Before statistics came out lately, almost everyone had no idea what they were doing and had no regret when they were taking that first puff of a cigarette. It began when tobacco was grown by the American Indians before the Europeans came to America. According to HistoryNet, the Huron Indian myth is that in ancient times, when the land was barren and the people were very hungry, the spirit sent forth a woman to save all humanity. As she traveled across the globe, everywhere her right hand touched the soil grew potatoes. Everywhere her left hand touched the soil grew corn. And when the world was rich and the soil was fertile, she sat down and rested. When she got up from resting, there grew tobacco. Throughout American history, tobacco has become very widely used. Defining tobacco. According to health literacy, tobacco is a green and leafy plant that can be smoked in many ways, through cigarettes, pipes, and cigars. There are also smokeless or chewing tobacco that can be chewed, and there is snuff, which can be sniffed through your nose. The chemical in tobacco that makes it addictive is called nicotine. I'm sure all of y'all have heard of the big bag nicotine. Nicotine goes into our bloodstream after we smoke, chew, or sniff tobacco, causing us to want more. It's the stuff that makes us addicted. The nicotine in tobacco makes it a drug. Now we'll move on to some history behind tobacco. According to health literacy, there have been findings of carved drawings in stone showing tobacco use, dating back to somewhere between 600 and 900 AD. Boston University Medical Center has determined that tobacco began growing in the Americas about 6000 BC and as early as 1 BC. American Indians began using tobaccos in many different ways, such as in religious and medicinal practices. It was believed to be a cure-all and was used to dress wounds as well as a painkiller. Chewing tobacco was believed to relieve the pain of a toothache as well. According to Boston University Medical Center, Christopher Columbus was offered dried tobacco leaves as a gift from the American Indians that he encountered on October 15, 1492, in which he brought back to Europe to be used for its healing properties. During the 1600s, tobacco was so popular that it was as good as gold. According to health literacy, tobacco was the first crop grown for money in North America, being grown as a cash crop by the first settlers in America. Even the first president of the United States, George Washington, grew tobacco. Now that you understand some of the history behind tobacco, let's move on to the science behind it and the downfall of it. Scientists began to catch on to the harmful chemicals in tobacco and realized the dangerous health effects it can cause. According to the studies of Boston Health Medical Center, the pure form of nicotine was discovered in 1826 and was found to be a poison only 10 years later. In the 1900s, the American Tobacco Company was the largest and most powerful tobacco company, with cigarettes becoming the major tobacco product bought and sold until the 1950s, when evidence was surfacing that smoking was linked to lung cancer. Many health hazards were reported in the 1960s, and health warnings on cigarette packs began popping up and followed with television ads for cigarettes being taken off the air in the U.S. As you can see, the various ways tobacco was used began to be seen as harmful. The tobacco industry was on a slow but surely downfall. According to Boston University Medical Center, many lawsuits were filed in the 1980s against tobacco industries because of the harmful effects of more public places began to forbid smoking. Because of how hard it became for tobacco companies to sell their products in America, they began to market outside of America and countries throughout Asia in hope to find more customers. I hope that you now have a better understanding of what tobacco is and the history and science behind it. According to the Cancer Council, if patterns continue, tobacco will kill approximately 10 million people every year throughout the world by 2020. It is understood that nicotine in tobacco products causes it hard to quit. and there is evidence of companies knowing nicotine is addictive and exploited this hidden knowledge to get millions of people hooked on this dangerous habit. As stated by the Boston University Medical Center, the origin and history of tobacco use in America has gone from tobacco being a drug casually used, people knowing none of the risks, to now being a drug with many known risks and side effects.